In this video, we're going to go over how to read a fertilizer tag. What do the three numbers mean? What do the nutrients, particularly the three big ones, what do they do for your grass? Micronutrients that are in the bag, are they really needed? We're going to calculate how much you actually need based on the turf that you have or the soil test that you get. Calculate costs so you can be a good comparative shopper. I'm going to go over how to get even distribution of the fertilizer that you're putting out. Why one fertilizer may cost more than the other, to actually give you the reasons of why that is. The differences of how fertilizers release. So that way when you buy fertilizer for Home Depot, Lowe's, or online or anywhere else, you know when you leave the store or if UPS drops it off at your front door, you know what you bought, you know what you got, you know how to put it out. And there's going to be a spreader setting here at the end that I've put together for you that should do all your fertilizer spreaders that you get in your local Home Depot, Lowe's, so you at least have some guidance there here at the end. So let's get started. So where the difference is between fertilizer to fertilizer is in nitrogen and the size of the particle, are called the SGN. Most professional grade fertilizer products, they generally have the SGN on the bag. SGN, size of the particle in millimeters times 100. So when you have a SGN of 100, that means it is 1 millimeter wide. One of the advantages of smaller particle sizes is its better distribution on your yard. It is also more expensive. There's 150 SGN, which I used on like golf course tees, for example. I would consider that size being high end for a homeowner. A lot of fertilizers, particularly at your agricultural stores, are generally 200, 250 SGN, or some maybe you're I can't say lower quality, but there's other ones that are cheaper that are 250 to 200 SGN. They will throw a little bit farther. They will not distribute quite as evenly over your turf. Generally, you will get you a better quality turf with a lower SGN. It all depends on whatever your budget is and whatever you're wanting to achieve. As far as the fertilizer bag itself, you basically have three numbers on the bag. You have the first one is nitrogen, the second one is phosphorus, and the third one is potassium. Now, what do those nutrients do for you? Nitrogen gives you topical growth and greens up the grass. It helps it heal and get thicker and greener. Phosphorus helps with a lot of the synthesis of nutrient uptake. It also helps with seedling vigor. That's why you see, and we'll talk about starter fertilizers here, a lot of starter fertilizers, that middle number is generally high. Potassium greens up the grass a little bit like nitrogen does, but it is more for winter and summer hardiness, stress relief for the plant. It also helps a great deal with rooting. Now, as far as phosphorus and potassium, this is where things get pretty simple. Really, from one fertilizer to another, there isn't that much difference between phosphorus and potassium. Where the difference lies is in nitrogen. And you've got nitrogen in two different ways: water soluble and water insoluble. Water insoluble nitrogens. I will classify this as maybe there's two types, maybe 2.5, maybe quite 3. I'll get to why I'm saying that here in a minute. One distinguished one is organics. Milorganite, blood meal, bone meal, things of that nature. I can only think of one instance where I've seen an organic fertilizer mixed with synthetic fertilizers, and that was a specialty fertilizer that I used on golf greens. I seriously doubt you will be out there anywhere in the market where you would have access to that there would be a synthetic mixed with an organic. So if you're using organic fertilizer, it's usually 100% water insoluble nitrogen. And that's an easy tag to read. That's where I'm building here, so you can actually look at the tag and know what the devil you're buying. We'll do the water solubles. These are the nitrogens that are available to your plant, generally in the neighborhood for 2 weeks to maybe 3 tops. The key things to know about water-soluble nitrogen are it can leach because nitrogen is highly mobile in soil. That's why when you get a soil test, some of them will give you a nitrogen recommendation on a soil test. I tell you, it's not worth the paper it's written on. It's bullshit. The reason being is during the growing season, the turf is using so much nitrogen, it's extracting nitrogen out of the soil. Also, if it's raining, it will leach. It moves very readily in soil. It also runs off, and it can also volatilize. Just make sure your grass is growing aggressively enough. We'll get into timing here in a few minutes to where it can absorb that nitrogen. Better for the environment, one, but it's also better for your pocketbook because there's no sense in having your money either leach, run off, or go out in the atmosphere using a water-soluble nitrogen.
Anyone who says differently is selling something.
Anyway, I digress. You will see this usually in urea and usually saying some type of ammoniacal nitrogen or ammonia nitrogen. One of those two. So that kind of gives you what's usually on the bag. Now, so let's talk about percentages in a moment. Remember when I said the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, those three numbers? That is a percentage of how much of that nutrient is in that bag. We'll get the calculations here in a minute. I'm kind of building here, so stick with me. The coated products are generally either sulfur coated or polymer coated. Now you will see sulfur polymer coated urea. All sulfur coated products act pretty much the same. Okay, there are some subtle differences, but way beyond what you really give a hoot about. We've got sulfur coated ureas. They're a urea sized particle of various sizes. Okay, I know I talked about that they just take that urea and they just coat it with sulfur and they all make it all the exact same size. So you have thicker sulfur coatings and thinner sulfur coatings on a urea particle and then micronutrients, and then they degrade with water, and as soon as eventually they will pop. So that's why they want those variations in the coatings of that sulfur, because if they all had an absolute uniform particle size of urea and an absolute particle size form of sulfur, it would all release pretty much on the same week. You don't want that. So that's why there's various sizes. Probably more in the weeds than what you want to know. Nevertheless, there you go. So there's that sulfur-coated products, and they generally feed for about 6 weeks, and then you'll get some residual out of that. Sulfur-coated urea, you'll generally get color-wise, you'll generally get 6 to 8 weeks out of it. Now we're talking about polymer-coated ureas. Polymer-coated ureas, and this is why I'm distinguishing between these two. Polymer-coated urea is a synthetic coating of polymer on a urea particle that allows water to get in, and then it releases with temperature. The temperatures increase, that polymer coating releases more nitrogen into your soil at higher temperatures. Those of you with warm season grasses, because you could put it out in May, and the warmer it gets, the more it will feed, and particularly you guys with Bermuda grass, once when it starts really getting warm, it's really releasing a whole lot and can keep up with that Bermuda grass or that warm season grass. In turn, if you're doing a fall application of nitrogen, you can go out at a fairly high rate on cool season grasses, and it will feed you into the winter. There'll probably be a little bit left over the winter. It won't release much at all, and it'll be left for you in the spring. So that's the advantage of polymer coating. The one thing about polymer coating, they are generally more expensive. Another type of water-insoluble nitrogen can be a stabilized urea. Sometimes it's called methylene urea. There are some other ones. But generally what it is, it's urea with some embalming fluid put in it. I know that sounds kind of morbid, but that's kind of how it is. What it is, those act a lot like sulfur-coated urea in how it feeds. It is a stabilized urea, so it stays in the soil a little longer than what obviously urea would, and it prevents it from leaching and volatilizing quite so much. So it's simply a stabilized urea, like I said, usually called a methylene urea. Okay, I went through all that in case there's some variation in tags. Majority of your better quality fertilizers have this at the bottom. Makes things fairly simple. They will have the analysis, what all is in it, all the nutrients that are in it, and then at the bottom of all that, they will have a percentage from polymer sulfur coated urea, or they will have a percentage from polymer coated urea. All right, that generally will give you how much on a percentage basis water insoluble nitrogen that is in that bag. So you have an idea, and all you got to do is take that percentage, subtract it from the percentage that is, let's say it's the 24011 is 12% from polymer sulfur coated urea. That means half of that fertilizer is water soluble, the other half is water insoluble. Okay? As far as fertilizer application to your yard, phosphorus and potassium are based on soil test. I have a soil test video if you want to check that out. Put that out any time of the year, provided the ground's not frozen. Nitrogen is a different story. This is the amount of nitrogen that each species will need throughout the entire year. Basic fertilizer application is a third at your second mowing of the year. That or it's going to volatilize, leach. Your grass is not going to be growing effectively enough to take it in, so that's why we wait till the second mowing. Our next third of an application is going to be sometime in May, probably with your pre-emergent herbicide. I've got some recommendations, at least some guidance that I can give you on my Amazon homepage, which I'll show you here in a few minutes. The other third application, this is where the cool season grasses and warm season grasses kind of diverge a bit. Warm season grasses, you'll probably want to go ahead and put another quarter, third, if you will, application out sometime in late June, early July, depending on your line of latitude and depending on how much rain you're having. If you have any stress, you want to kind of back off the nitrogen, which leads me to my second point on cool season grasses. During the summer, when you have a lot of heat stress, drought stress, you don't want to be putting a whole lot of nitrogen on cool season grasses. So you're going to wait for your next third of an application sometime in September. You could also add a little bit of nitrogen again if you want to go a little bit higher on these rates. Again, sometime around October. It's really important to fertilize, put a good nitrogen application out on cool season grasses in the fall because it will overwinter, as I sort of talked about with the polymer coated material. If you put a good application of nitrogen out in the fall, that'll help you with spring green up. Now, warm season grass folks, you cannot put a nitrogen application on your lawn 6 weeks prior to dormancy. If you do, you will undermine the turf's ability to survive the winter. Those of you in far south, down in southern Texas, down in Florida, it's not a big deal. You need to be feeding, and you need to be on that higher end of 6 pounds per 1,000 square feet on nitrogen, particularly with Bermuda. Centipede folks, I'll give you a little pointer. You don't need a whole lot of nitrogen. And probably if I had centipede grass, I'd probably be more inclined to go with an organic program and just feed organically over time. Warm season grasses, you guys can go ahead and put out, and this is why you often see a lot of 007, a lot of pre-emergent products for warm season grasses with that analysis for you to be able to put out a pre-emergent herbicide in the late summer, very early fall, and that will help you get through the dormant season without getting a whole lot of weeds in your yard. If I went too fast for you, or if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. Please do. I'll get back to you in a day or two. Real quick, how YouTube works is fairly simple. The more likes or comments that a video gets, i.e. engagement, the more that they suggest it to other viewers. Look, I've kind of alluded to it in some of my other videos. I'm not here to grow a channel. I'm here to help folks with the experience that I have over the last 35 years. I really don't give a shit about growing my channel, becoming viral, or some personality on YouTube, or anywhere else for that matter. But if this video has helped you, leave a like, add a comment, what you've learned about this video, the type of grass that you have, which I am interested because I'd like to know where all my viewers are as far as what kind of grass you have, and any type of comment that you would have about the video that you've learned would be great. Micronutrients. There is much to do on YouTube, particularly on iron, about micronutrients. Generally, micronutrients are not that big of an issue. As I said, I think in another video, there's not a golf course superintendent on planet Earth tossing and turning in his bed at night worrying about micronutrients on turf grass. It's just that simple. What you'll need to do is go ahead and get a soil test, and if you're deficient in micronutrients, you'll ideally need to get a chelated iron or a chelated manganese or a chelated micronutrient product. That is the ideal situation. Chelates basically allow that nutrient to be more available at various pHs. You will use half as much chelated product versus a non-chelated product. I have an iron application video. If you guys, I go into depth about chelates. I explain chelation quite a bit. As far as comparative shopping, I actually went to Lowe's the other day and took this video. I'm going off the top of my head, but you can see it in the video. 2 bags were the same price. One was, I think, 13 or 15, 15, 15. Another one was a 10, 10, 10. When you have 20% versus a 10% nitrogen product, that means you're going to have to use twice as much of that product in order to equal the same amount of a 20% product. Okay? You see what I'm saying? Those bags were the exact same price. Another way you can get confused is you have 2 different bags of fertilizer, and one of them is like 40 pounds, and another one's like 47 pounds, and we know that the prill size does have, or the SGN size does have an effect on the price. We also know that the type of coating on the product, or how that urea or nitrogen is stabilized in some way, has an effect on the product. But all things being equal here, what you will need to do is you'll need to take the total poundage in the bag, then multiply it by the nutrient in decimal form. Again, the 24011 that I had, I would need to take, if you had a 50-pound bag, I would take 50 pounds, multiply it by 0.24. That gives me how many pounds of nitrogen are in that bag. Then I will need to take the price of that bag divide it by the pounds, and that gives me how much I'm paying per pound of nitrogen that is in that bag. Both things being equal between those two bags, you have the price per pound of one bag versus the other. It's simple math. Something else, if you want to do some comparative shopping, I went through Amazon this winter and picked out fertilizers, pre-emergent herbicides, fertilizers with pre-emergent herbicides, post-emergent herbicide sprayers, just about anything you need on your home lawn. Just give you another tool to comparative shop, and maybe take some, if you're looking for something on Amazon, take some of the time that you're going to take in researching and trying to take all the marketing nonsense out of it. If you go to my Amazon page, link will be in the description and in the comment, go there, click on ideas list, and click on fertilizers. I have two polymer coated products there. I think one's an Anderson and the other one is a 25712, I believe. Both of those are polymer coated. You also have a stabilized methylene urea. That's I think it's a 2206. That's probably the cheapest I have on there as far as slow release. There's also a couple sulfur coated ureas on there as well. As far as water soluble, I know I've been using water soluble, but I'm trying to keep the nomenclatures on the tags so you guys know what you're looking at. They're also called quick release fertilizers, so you hear that terminology as well. Really, at the end of the day, Amazon, there's nothing on Amazon compete as well as if you go to your local Home Depot or Lowe's, and like the ones I showed you a minute ago from Lowe's, you might as well get from Lowe's. It's going to give you a better value. Whatever you want to do with your budget. There again, if you have questions, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to help in any way I can. The Big Finish, a fertilizer spreader setting chart. This is a chart that I got from Anderson Products, and they had one, leave the link below, showing several fertilizer spreader settings. There were some gaps that were missing. I tried to fill some of these gaps looking at other products, compared them to the pounds per thousand and the SGN in the bag, and trying to get some level of idea, at least give you some guidance. And this is just guidance, guys, but at least gives you some idea of where to set your spreader starting out. What I would do, I would measure an area in your backyard. Always start fertilizer applications in your backyard in case something goes awry. At least it's in the backyard. Measure about 250 square foot area, or put like a half pound, maybe even as much as a pound of fertilizer in your spreader and spread it, start spraying it on your backyard with one of these settings, and just check, make sure the square footage makes sense. If you're putting out 50% slow release product, the likelihood of you burning up your yard is very low. Now, if you're putting out a pure 100% water-soluble fertilizer like the 1313, the 1010 I just showed you from Lowe's, yeah, you can burn some grass up with that. You just got to be careful. Here's the chart. Now, we talked about the SGN. And there again, the SGN is the size of the particle in millimeters times 100. So if you have a product that is a 140 SGN, that means that product is around 1.4 millimeters. So just take a ruler and measure it. You know, you're going from 140 to 155 in that center column. Up above, and it's probably going to be a majority of the fertilizers that you have, you're going to be in that 200 215 SGN, which is basically 2 millimeters to 2.15 millimeters. So there again, that's some guidance. The big thing about Scott's products, and they're the 100 SGN, by the way, and that's why you're paying a premium for Scott's products. I actually emailed them and see if they had more of a chart. It's the only problem I have with Scott's product is I wish they had more fertilizer spreader settings on their bags, but they don't want to do that. And yeah, some of it is, I think they're trying to sell fertilizer spreaders, but the other side of the coin is I think they want to be sure that you're putting it out the correct rate. So I get that. I see both sides of it. I just wish they weren't more accommodating, because Anderson's doesn't have any problem with, by the way, Anderson owns Scott's. That's what I just can't figure out. Anyway, I'm going on a soapbox here. You should have a pretty good background there of what you need, so that way you get what you want. Because like I said earlier, at the end of the day, the only thing I really care about is helping you out. So now you have all the tools that you need to where you go into a store, you're looking something online, you know what you're getting, you know what you need. My main goal of my channel is when you look at your yard, and this is why I became a golf course superintendent. That's why I really like this line of work. You get to see the fruits of your labor. Would warm the cockles of my heart.
Warm the cockles of your heart.
If you can look at your yard and be proud of it, because I get that. So that's the goal of this channel. I'm not some guy selling fertilizer. I want to be some, I don't know, personality. So anyway, hope this helps. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Good luck.